Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of Stargazing Saturdays. So in this episode, let's take a look at Jupiter through my telescope. So let's get started. Before we get to the part where I actually show you how Jupiter looks through my telescope, let me tell you something. How do you find Jupiter in the sky? Jupiter is fairly bright than any other star in the sky and it's a bit dimmer than Venus, so finding it won't be very hard. As of now, you can find Jupiter just after sunset in the southeastern skies, and as the night progresses, it would go to the western part of the sky and it would set before sunrise. Although Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system, it's not the brightest though. That credit goes to Venus, and if you know how to find Venus in the sky, and it's not very hard to find Jupiter as well. Looking at Jupiter through a telescope is a different experience because as it is with Saturn, if you look Saturn through a telescope, the awe factor, that is the rings that you see of Saturn, it's very magnificent. But for Jupiter, it's kind of a weird story because you are seeing something very different. What you see is this kind of a blob thing that is obviously the planet, and you see a lot of stars in and around the planet. And as it turns out, these stars are actually moons of Jupiter. And Jupiter has more than 70 moons. I think the exact number is 79. Out of these 79 moons, you can see 4 moons through a telescope. Even through a cheap and inexpensive telescope, you can see these 4 moons. These moons are often referred to as Galilean moons because it's Galileo who discovered these moons back at the time when he used his telescope to look at the sky. And to credit him, they are called as Galilean moons. Also, if you have a decently sized telescope, that is telescopes that have an aperture of more than 6 inches, you can see something called as the Great Red Spot. It's a storm that's raging in Jupiter, and it's been raging for over 100 years, and it's bigger than our Earth in comparison. So you can see that through a telescope. Some other things that you can see through a telescope are the shadows that are cast by the moon on Jupiter. As with my telescope, I haven't seen neither the Great Red Spot nor the shadows because I can't push the magnification of this telescope that much, so I don't get to see all of that. But what I get to see is these cloud bands of Jupiter that appear like lines on the planet. I know this doesn't seem much, it's just a blob, but if I do a kind of processing here using computer to stack the images, I can get a very good picture out of it. At least something that I can show you guys. And also these moons that appear in and around Jupiter, and as I told, if you take a couple of nights, if you keep on observing Jupiter, you can see them move. Yeah, literally orbit Jupiter. That is something so cool. As much as I love seeing planets through my telescope, I love more to show them to people, that is especially children. The oohs and wows that I get especially when they see it for the first time, is very much worth the effort. So that's it guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. So until next time, this is me, your striving amateur. Goodbye.